the Starry Night Make and Take video. My name is Kim Kesti and I'm Creative Director here at FSJ and Spellbinders, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. I love crafting with you, and I wish I could actually be with each and every one of you as you sit around your craft table, whether you're crafting by yourself, whether you're crafting with a group of 2 or 3, or maybe you have a whole room full of friends. I love that. So we are going to dive right into the Starry Night project kit, which I have in front of me, and then we're just going to get to work on those cards. I hope you're ready to craft. Okay, so here is the Starry Night bundle, and you've probably, if you have ordered the kit, already got this on your doorstep. So exciting. It comes packed with everything you need kit-wise to complete all the projects. We'll just add a few little inks, some silks, some different fun techniques. The Starry Night kit in particular has a lot of really fun inky things, so I can't wait to get started. Let's take a look at the kit. So inside you've got your stamp sets, which by the way are gorgeous. We've got Dream Seeker, which by the way has the matching die right here. We'll open both of those in just a minute. And then you've got the Starry, really fun Space Galaxy background stamps. This is one giant stamp. You're gonna have so many fun possibilities when you can start crafting with this guy. And then of course we've got the stencil, which we're gonna be using, the Star Bright stencil, so fun. You've got your both postcards, so some of you I think have already started doing your projects maybe ahead of this video, which is perfectly fine because you do have all the instructions, the supply list if you want to recreate the card later, and all the directions, of course. So 1, 2, 3, 4 projects. We're actually going to start with this guy, so I'll keep that one handy. You've got your entire bottle of Starry Night sequins. How fun is that? So we're only going to use a fraction of these on the 4 projects we're doing today, so you're going to have plenty left over to play with. And then of course your 4 project kits, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And like I said, we're going to start with this one right here on top, so I'm actually going to tuck the others in the box, set this guy aside. This particular kit is the first one we're starting with, and it coordinates with the Shoot for the Moon card. Move these other supplies over just a little bit. So this is the first kit you want to grab, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull it right out of its little protective plastic bag here. Of course, you know I keep these bags and recycle them for all kinds of little doodads. So we've got, in here, you've got actually 2 splash sheets, and we gave you 2, and this is our watercolor paper. So this is our little bit heavier, thicker paper compared to our whipped cream cardstock, which is the smaller piece. So don't use this, we're gonna use that for stamping. You're gonna wanna pull out both of your splash sheets, and we really just gave you an extra so you can practice. Maybe if you do the first background and you're not 100% happy with it, you want to be able to do a second try. I'm pretty sure you guys are going to get it very first try. You're going to nail it. I know you are. But just in case you have, one where you're like, oh, I don't quite love how that turned out, we gave you option A and option B. Or you can just save this for another project. So I always try to give you a few little extra pieces in your kits. So let me set everything aside except for the splash sheets. We definitely want to start with these guys because it is a wet, messy technique, and we want to give it plenty of time to dry. So that's why we're starting with this. And we're actually going to get started on the background, set it aside, work on the other parts of the card, and then kind of flip back and forth. Does that make sense? Well, it will in just a moment. Now what I have is, because this is a really messy technique, I don't have a non-stick paper, which you could use to put underneath. What I've actually got is some of these sheets of really inexpensive, what we call newsprint. And I'm just going to grab a few. You can get these at, any of your hobby stores, or get it online. Or you can use really anything you have around the house. If you actually have newspapers and you still get, the little circulars or the newspapers that come to your house, you can certainly use that too. But what I want is something that's kind of absorbent. You could use paper towel actually for that matter too. Something that's a little bit absorbent, because as we play with these colors, you'll see what's going to happen. They're going to mix and meld and kind of even run off this sheet of watercolor paper, and that's really the effect that we do want. So prepare to get messy. So I've got my medium mister here, and it is full of water. I made sure it was nice and full. And now I've got 5 different silks that I'm going to be using. And these are all on your card. And if you don't have all 5, that's perfectly fine. You can substitute other colors. Any of the darker color silks that we have in our collection would work perfectly. You may also have color splashes that you could use in your repertoire, in your craft stash there. So anything that's water-based, that's got this really nice color to it, is going to work great for this technique. Now the great thing about the silks in particular is that they do have some really nice metallic. This one probably actually shows better in the silk. So that's really going to make this Starry Night be absolutely gorgeous. So you do kind of want to mix that up. Mix up that lovely, yummy metallic that's in the bottom of the bottle. And I just tap it gently. You can see it's breaking up already. You don't want to slam it too hard, or don't hit it on your table either. The bottles are glass and they will break, but just kind of, you know, roll it in your hands, warm it up so you can see that that's all mixed up. Kind of quickly do that with all of mine. So you can see the colors I have here: Cool Pool, Electric Lime, Beach Ball, Turbo Teal, and my black licorice. So again, any combination of those, and everyone's Starry Sky is going to turn out different, and that's what I love about this technique. It's so much fun. So I'm going to go ahead and mist both sides of my watercolor paper, my splash sheet. That's so it doesn't warp and curl up, and I'm being pretty generous with the water. You can see how much I squirted on there. I mean, you probably can't see it on the video, but you can see the squirting going on here. Again, making sure it's really nicely covered. And I probably, as I go, I'm going to add even more water, so I'm going to keep this guy handy. I'm going to start with my darkest color. Now, I've tried this technique a few different times, and I've tried it, you know, starting with my mid-tone, starting with my darker. In the end, it really doesn't matter what you start with, but I think that I ended up having some of the really best results when I started with the darker tones. So I'm going to start with black licorice, and it really is all about just dropping the black licorice on here. And as you can see, I'm being quite generous. And isn't it cool already how it kind of gives you this kind of swirly, spacey look? And it looks like I'm adding a lot, but I'm not even kidding. I'm going to add even more as we go along. Now I'm going to take a little more water because this is really going to move my silk around. Now our silk is a water-based product, so again, just add your water as you go. And the splash sheet is so awesome. It really soaks up a lot of water. So don't be shy. I think I'm going to come in with my Turbo Teal next. It's one of my next darker tones. And I'm just going immediately in there. I'm not letting that black dry. And look how fun. It kind of does a little resist technique. When you add the Turbo Teal, it kind of doesn't want to mix straight up with the black. It will mix a little bit as I add water. But isn't it cool how it starts resisting? Oh, I love it. Okay, so I'm going to add a little Cool Pool. Now, the sample I did before I started this video, I think I added maybe too much Cool Pool. Now when I look at it when it dried, so maybe be a little lighter handed with the Cool Pool. I don't know. Like I said, doesn't totally matter because it's going to come out gorgeous in the end no matter what. Now I'm bringing my Beach Ball in. This is going to give me those nice blue sky highlights that I want. My Beach Ball silk, actually, if you look at it, it's starting to get kind of low. I know I used a lot of the Beach Ball earlier. Now let's see, I'm gonna add a little bit more water because can you see around the edges of the paper? It's still like got a little bit of the white showing. So I just kind of want to make sure those are nice and soaked. So as my color moves around, it gets to all corners of my paper. We are going to trim this sheet down just a smidge once it's dry. Can you guys believe how much water you can add to these? Isn't it amazing? Okay, now I'm coming at this one's going to be really fun. This is our Electric Lime. Now you could use any brighter color. You could even use pink or purple or any of the silks you have. I chose Electric Lime. I'm just going to put it on, but it gives it instantly a really cool space look. Isn't that fun how it resists? And again, I've got so much water on here that it really is not going to give the full effect until it starts drying. But now I've added all 5 of my colors, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of budge this sheet, and I'm going to let it puddle. See how it's kind of puddling up? I'm going to try to move it so you can not see the glare of the water. And I'm just going to leave it. I'm not going to blot it. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to set it aside and let it just puddle and pool and have fun up there and start to dry. All right. Set my silks aside. My sheet's pretty clean. I'll leave that, let that get going. Wipe my hands a wee bit. Make sure this is not wet, so I think it's fine. Okay, so now I'll bring in my other elements of the rest of the card kit. I think I'm going to go ahead and do the sentiment next, since we have to heat emboss that. So what you're going to want to do is grab your clear pigment ink, and then I'm going to grab my stamp set out, of course. This is the Dream Seeker stamp set we're using right now, and I have got it in the plastic, so I'll take that out. You'll be able to see it better when I do that. So fun to have a brand new stamp set, right? It's like, oh, so exciting. Now, those of you who are not familiar with FSJ may not realize that these backer cards that the stamps come attached to are really cool. They're really, really thick plastic, and they're perfect for storing your stamps on, whether you eventually slide them in a sleeve, which I can show you in a little bit, or you just have them on here. So the rubber is attached to this acetate sheet, and this is really something that you want to save and just reuse later. I save these sheets for use them for palettes. I can use them for windows, for shaker cards, or whatever. So definitely recycle, reuse that piece. And then the cling that's on the red rubber stamps has got this amazing cling foam, super strong and durable. And then that, of course, will just cling to the backer card. So then you can mount your stamp there, and again, it's perfect for storing them. All of our rubber stamps are deeply etched red rubber, absolutely gorgeous, made in the USA. Very proud of that. For this particular card, the first thing I need is the sentiment. I'm going to use a few of the planets and stuff in a minute, but I just need the sentiment to start with. Put on one of our clear blocks here. And you can see, I don't know if I didn't just mention that they're indexed, right? I guess you guys figured that out, that they've got the indexing on the back of the stamp, so you know exactly what you're stamping. Okay, so what's great about our blocks too, just one little tip, you always want to mount the stamp on the side of the block without the grid, just so you don't get your grid all super inky. But you can use the grid lines here to kind of line up your stamp and make it pretty straight. So I love that extra little tip on using your grid lines. Now we're going to take this little vellum strip, and we made it plenty long, like it's longer than your card front, if you kind of look at, sort of picture this. So we gave you extra vellum. What we're going to do eventually is turn this guy under and staple it, turn this under and staple it or adhere it. So I do kind of want to use my blue to use as a guide. And then I'm going to bring my clear pigment ink. Just make sure it's loaded up nicely. Sometimes on brand new stamps, I'll stamp them just to make sure the ink is all good in there. And then you kind of want to stamp over to the right side of your vellum. If I don't get my head in here, I can use my grid lines to help match up and get my stamp as straight as I can. It's not perfect, that's okay. I know you can't see that very good until I add the powder, but let me go ahead and do that. What I do a lot of times when I add, when I do embossing powder is I go ahead and use our little media tray, which originally has dividers, but then I just take them out. Put this little guy in here, and it becomes a really nice surface to be able to capture my embossing powder. So I'm using white embossing powder, and I'm pretty generous when I dump it on. Just kind of go ahead and sprinkle quite a bit, and because it lands in the tray, then it's really quite perfect for me to then dump back into the jar, which I will do in a minute. You love how crafters do that. They're like, oh my gosh, I'll clean up later. That's like the mantra, right? So let me grab my glue gun, and then I'll, let me grab my heat gun, and then we're gonna heat emboss this little guy. I'll just come back to the front one then. Okay, I had to reach down there and grab my heat gun here. Turn it on, let it warm up for just a minute. I don't always try to heat emboss on live video because it's like kind of annoying, the sound. But bear with me, this one will go pretty fast. When I do the embossing, I do this in a circular motion and just kind of keep the heat moving on there. I worried that the vellum would get kind of warped when you do heat embossing, but it doesn't. Our vellum is really a nice, heavy, good quality vellum, so it stays quite nice. You can see as it starts melting, it gets that super gorgeous, glossy white finish. I just want to make sure all of it's melted. I'll do some embossing later on one of the other cards. And my tip on embossing always is, once you get it done, just heat it a little bit more, just so you know it's all melted. And I'll even do the back side like I'm doing right now. Just a little bit. Okay, that looks good. I'm happy with that. And by the way, your galaxy piece that over here is drying, I'm just going to bring it back in and kind of show you as it's drying how much it's lightening up. You could accelerate the drying of this with the heat gun, and I may do that a little bit, but I kind of want to let it dry naturally. That really gives me the best effect when I was happy with my finished card. So again, just kind of keep letting that guy dry. All right, so now we've got our background. This black piece is really just our card base. Grab my crease tool and just fold that guy right in half. You could use a scoring tool, our scoring tool, or the scoring blade on the trimmer. A lot of times I like to crease it one way and then come back and crease it the other way. It gives me a nice sharp crease. All right, so card base, we won't need that right away. Now this blue piece, you might be wondering what it's for. It really was just to become a mat, to be, you know, when this guy gets all dry and we trim it down, this just kind of becomes a reinforced panel that we're going to adhere to that guy when it's dry, but we don't need that right now, right this second either. Let's do a little stamping. Let's do some more stamping. So the front of the card, if you look at the photo on the card, does have one of the large moon images and then another spaceship. Excuse me, another planet, not a spaceship. That's another stamp set we have. Don't exactly know what planet this is. By the way, we should say hi to Roy because Roy is our amazing video guy, and he is, of course, here with me as we create these videos.
I believe that's Saturn you're looking at.
Is it Saturn? Okay, good. See, I knew he would know. Not that I'm calling you a nerd or anything, Roy, but you know, hey.
I am an astronomy nerd, yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so we've got Saturn and then we've got the moon right here, so both are very fun. I guess maybe if you colored it some different colors, it could be like an unknown planet or something, who knows. Okay, so I'm grabbing my black licorice ink, and I'm just going to ink these two guys up.
Well, if you put it sideways, it could be Neptune.
Could be Neptune if it was sideways, yeah. I don't know how many rings it has. I don't think it has enough rings for Saturn. I'm wondering about you, Roy. Maybe it has rings that we just can't see, right? Kind of a disguise there.
I stand by my judgment.
Yeah, because we're pretty much like I don't think it's any other planet, so it must be Saturn. Oh my goodness. Okay, so what I'm going to bring in now is I'm going to bring in my Color Burst pencils, and these are just our normal colored pencils, super high quality. Got some gorgeous pigment in them. And then of course you can do any kind of colors you want as you come in and, you know, color your planets. I kind of chose to do my planet a little bit more in the blue tones, but you know, if Saturn is a different color officially, then that's totally fine. You could do any color you want. But the colored pencil trick really to me is just all about adding layers. So when I come in with my moon, for instance, I'm going to grab my pencil number 29. I'm just going to come in and kind of just do a base coat of color on the entire moon's surface here. And then I'll come in and do some other shading. I want this to be pretty light, so I'm using really light pressure with my hand here and my pencil. And again, kind of just giving this base coat. The colored pencils blend really beautifully. So when you come in with another darker color, you can just kind of work them in together. And again, coloring, you know, you can use any other kind of coloring methods that you have. If you have watercolors, we're going to use that on a different card later, but you could absolutely use watercolors on this card too, of course. Let's grab a little bit darker gray. This guy's 46. Kind of like to share the colors in case you want to really go along with me exactly. So I'm kind of trying to get a little crater effect here. Just following some of these lines on the stamped image. And again, still pretty light hand, just kind of coloring. Got some shading starting to happen. I kind of like coloring. I wouldn't consider myself an expert color or anything, but it is fun to spend a little bit of time and get this guy going. I say the guy like the moon is a man. What do you guys think? Is it like the man on the moon? I've heard other lore that the moon could be female too, so who knows, right?
Luna does not sound like a man's name.
Ooh, true story, Roy. Ooh. So maybe Luna has a man living on her. The man on the moon lives on Mother Moon. we will just never know. I guess I will never personally go to the moon, I'm sure. So, okay, so now I'm bringing in a little bit of blue. This is 28. And I'm just going to kind of bring a few little highlights. I've got a lot of blue in that background, remember? So I think we can have a little blue action going on here. I'm not trying to really make this look like water or anything, but just rather bring in some blue kind of around the edges. Give it some depth. And I might want to even bring in my more kind of, I don't know, this one's got a little bit more tealy. Let's grab this pencil. What is this? This one's 27. So this might even give me a little bit more teal action going on. So again, just play around, make the moon your own. And then I can come back with my lightest gray. I always like to kind of come back with that lighter color that I started with. And then if I just go on top of any of the colors that are currently on there, it just kind of helps smooth them all out and blend them all together. That's kind of a tip for you. Use your lightest shade to do your blending. FSJ also does sell little blending stumps, but I didn't use that on mine. You certainly could if you had them. And that's just a really tight roll of paper that helps you do some blending. But pretty happy with that. Love that for my moon. This guy I am gonna bring in a couple more shades of blue, maybe even the darker 24. So I've got like 3 different shades of blue here. And again, starting with my lightest one, I'll kind of start in the center and color this little planet. Okay, keep me updated, Roy. Is Saturn really blue? Because I feel really ignorant about this now. Or no, is Saturn supposed to be like red or something?
Uranus is actually blue and has up sort of sideways, like rings on the vertical.
Oh, interesting.
Neptune leans green.
Neptune leans green. Okay.
And also has rings.
All right. What about Saturn, though?
Saturn is leaning sort of yellow-orange.
Yellow. That's what I was wondering. So you definitely could do yellow-orange on this guy. So what's the really red planet? Jupiter?
Well, Mars is the traditional red planet.
Mars. Yeah, you're right. Mars is a red planet.
Jupiter has red and like whitish stripes.
Ooh, that would be fun to color.
It's got like the really dramatic stripes,
right.
Like orange and yellow and white.
Right, this is ringing a bell now.
Yep, and the big storm on the side, the big spot,
ooh,
which you can actually see with a telescope. It's crazy.
Cool.
You got me started, Kim.
Yay, I love it. Well, you know what? This whole session is all about Starry Night, dude. So I think we're right on track. I love it. We've probably got 2 hours here to talk about Starry Night things, so it's awesome. Okay, so my rings, I'm adding a little bit of gray because I kind of want them to sort of go with my moon. I could get a little risky and put a little bit of green in here. That might be cool. I don't know if I did that on my original card, but like I said, kind of make it your own. Make it whatever planet makes you happy.
That one's definitely looking like Uranus.
Ooh, okay, cool. But that Uranus doesn't have rings, right?
It does have rings.
It does?
It does vertical rings, not horizontal.
Oh, yeah, they go like this. Oh, so if I put the planet, is this what you're telling me?
Yeah,
if
that
I
would
put the
be Uranus.
This way? I love it. So cool. I can tell I need to brush up on my astronomy.
Non-astronomy people will probably say, hey, Saturn's sideways.
But you know what? It's a rubber stamp, so you can stamp it any way you want, right?
Well, that is the iconic Saturn. The planet with a ring is an iconic Saturn, you know.
So awesome. Okay, so now I'm pretty happy with the coloring on both of these. I'm just going to go ahead and cut them out. Now, wait a second. I'm sitting there pausing because I'm like, do we have a matching die for these? Let me grab my die before I get too crazy. Oh, we have a matching die for one. Now, this guy's just a plain circle. And I have a feeling one of our FSJ circles probably fits that. So you could, if you have the FSJ circles, cut that out. I'm going to act like you don't, that maybe you're new to Fun Stampers Journey. So I'm going to fussy cut that guy. But if we have the matching die, we should use the matching die. That's what I'm talking about right here. So there it is. Put these other guys back in the envelope real quick. We'll definitely be using this die set later because we're going to be doing this really fun whale on a card a little bit later. So let me fussy cut this before I bring my machine in. And again, I'm sure between all the circles that we have that probably one fits this quite nicely, but fussy cutting a circle's not too hard either. I kind of like to leave a little bit of a white edge around the planet. You know, in other words, not cut right on the stamped line. So there's that guy. Cool. Okay, let me grab my little platinum here. So, okay, get it to sit evenly here. Line up that die. See if this is sort of showing on the video. You could use a little piece of repositionable tape if you want, but when I'm just doing a single die, it's pretty quick and easy. And there we go. How perfect is that, right? So quick and easy to use the die. I'm glad that you have that in your kit. Set that guy back aside. All right, so there's our little planet. Now I'm going to set these on the card base here. And let's check on our galaxy here, because I think we're going to have to add a few more little things to our galaxy. Let's check it out. Okay, pretty cool. I'm actually going to kind of flip this over a little bit. So I definitely feel that it's still a little bit damp, but when I get to this point, I like to take a look at it and decide if I need to add a little bit more color. And I'm feeling I do want to add a little bit more color. So if you love yours, if you're happy with how it is right now, you can absolutely stop. But I'm going to go ahead and wet it again. You can see that some of it's soaked through in the back, which is totally fine. So in other words, I don't have to spray the back again. I'm just going to spritz the front again. You can see that the water kind of makes everything glow again, which is totally cool. I'm going to bring some more beach ball in. I want a little bit more of my kind of blue sky peeking through. Does that make sense? The night sky is not totally black, I guess, unless there's a night with no moon, then it probably is, but I love the idea of the depth, so you have all the different colors kind of layered on top of each other. That's kind of what I'm going for here. Should we get it on the edges? Sometimes I forget to go all the way to the edges. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to add another little quick spritz of water. What do you guys think? Is looking pretty good? I'll try to tilt it a little bit. I might add a little bit more of the lime just for a little pop of color. Maybe I'll just kind of do that in the corner and up in this corner. Yep, kind of like it. Okay, I'm going to set that aside, continue letting it dry naturally. And I think we're pretty much as far as we can go on this particular card. So I'm going to go ahead and tidy my space up. I'll leave these right here as kind of a little placeholder. That way you guys can pause the video if you're at a point where you're like not quite caught up, or you're still coloring, or you're still embossing, or you're still fiddling with your background. While we were paused, I started playing with my background again because I told you it's really fiddly and you're gonna have to just kind of play and play and play. But I do want to show you what I did and recreate it. This is a panel that I did earlier in the day that is completely dry. So I want to show you that, and then I'll show you how I fiddled with my first panel. So remember how I said we gave you 2 watercolor sheets? So this is exactly why. So you can play with both of them, you know, kind of experiment, see what becomes your favorite background. So because this is completely dry, I'm going to wet it just a little bit here and just a smidge on the back side. You don't need quite as much. But I make sure that's nice and wet. Now what I started fiddling with while we were paused there is my beach ball, and I kind of went a little crazy, but I love it. So I'm going to show you what I did. I took our beach ball because, again, like I said, I think it needs a little bit more blue. And instead of just flicking like this, because I wasn't getting enough, guys watch, this is going to be crazy. I poured a little bit extra out. I actually love how it turned out. Now be really careful so you don't pour the entire bottle. But like I said, my beach ball is getting kind of low already. So I kind of love how it started turning out. Started really getting that nice deep blue. So check it out. Oh my gosh, you guys, is this gorgeous? Again, I just wish you were here with me so you could see it in person. But I think you're going to kind of get a pretty good idea. See how much lovely, gorgeous blue is in there? Now I'm going to come back with a little bit more black. Kind of go to town on some of the puddles there. And really just kind of use all 5 of my colors again. A little bit of the electric lime. Don't have to do quite as much of that. Maybe spritz the edges a little bit dry right here. Spritz a little bit more water in there. Of course, I have another mister completely full. Are we glad these come in 3-packs or what? For sure. Okay. A little bit of my turbo teal. So much fun. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. So this is the one that, again, I had dry earlier. Let me show you the one I was fiddling with during the break. And I love how it's turning out too. So this one's already had a few minutes to dry. So you can see how we've got a little bit more of that blue color. I love that beach ball, how it's really soaking in there and giving me that nice depth I like. So I think I'm going to be totally happy with both of these. So I am officially calling it stop. So I'm going to set them aside. And we actually are going to start on another card while those dry. And again, if you choose to accelerate the drying with a heat gun, you can try that. I recommend, we've got 3 more cards to make. We've got plenty to keep us busy. Let's go ahead and let those dry normally, manually, naturally. If you are in an area that's super humid, you might have to heat it up, a little bit to speed it. But Arizona, things dry pretty fast. So again, we'll let that set. So let's start with our second card. Let's go ahead and grab Shoot for the Moon card and flip that guy right over. And this next card is called Over the Moon. So let me grab my box so I can get that card kit. It is the one that has the beach ball background. This nice green shade, the stripes. And then this sentiment, this was kind of fun. This is from another stamp set in the FSJ collection. But I wanted that extra sentiment, so we went ahead and pre-stamped it for you. Right? How fun is that? So we got a little bit of the work already done for you. So we can set that aside and maybe set our stickers. We're going to, of course, work on the background first. Now this one is a really fun inky technique, but it's not near as messy as the one we just did. So that is good. You can follow along in your instruction card and you can see all the different colors of ink that we need here. And again, use the inks that you already have. You don't have to have the exact same shades that I do, but I used electric lime. I used watermelon fusion for that fun pop of pink. I used haystack for the little golden pops of color, turbo teal, and Catalina. So those are the 5 colors that I chose to use. And what I'm going to use to apply the background is fusion sponges. Now our fusion ink sponges come like this. They have 3 in a pack. They're called fusion ink sponges. They're specially made to work really well with our inks, which are a fusion ink, by the way. Oops, sorry about the crackly crack. Which means they're a blend of a pigment and a dye ink. So because they're a special formula, we've got these sponges made that work really well with them. And because I am kind of thrifty, I go ahead and like to cut my sponges into 4 pieces. If you did have a dedicated sponge, or you were doing maybe a technique with liquid color where you wanted the entire sponge, for sure you could leave it. It fits really nice in your hand. It works really well. But because I have so many different colors I'm using, I'm going to go ahead and cut this sponge into 4 pieces. And when I use it to apply my ink, I'm always going to want to reach for the rounded edge of the sponge. So that's what I want to do. It's going to stop me from getting any weird marks on my paper or anything like that. So I think I will start with, doesn't 100% matter. I like to start with the lighter color, so I could choose maybe the green or the yellow. Maybe I'll kind of go for the green first. This is electric lime. And then I pinch the sponge just a little bit in my hand. You can do whatever's comfortable for you. And I just pick up some of the ink with a sponge. And this technique, like I said, is not hard, but it does take a little bit of time because we are getting so much of that yummy layering of color. But again, kind of starting with your lighter colors and working your way out. I'm just going to kind of choose to do, several spots. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pause a second because I think I want to trim this panel down. Let's see. No, I think it's already cut to the right size. Let's see. Nope, it's not. It's too big. let's pause for a minute. So we want this white panel, which we made plenty big for you. I'm going to go ahead and just trim it down a little bit because I want to place my ink colors exactly where I want them. So I'm just bringing in my paper trimmer right here. And I'm looking at the directions, and I guess we didn't put the exact dimensions, so I'm glad you are watching this video. I'm going to check my green. It's 4 inches wide. So I want this guy to be 3 3/4. Because I want it to layer. See, I want it to layer on my green. So that's right. And then this guy is 5 1/4. So I'm going to start out with 5 inches wide. And then it should layer on here really nicely. Yep, perfect. So again, let me just repeat those dimensions to you. You want to take your whipped cream. You could do this after you inked or before. It's totally fine either way. But eventually you're going to have to trim it down a little bit. So I choose to do it now. So again, 3 3/4 by 5 inches. 3 3/4 by 5. That's what you want your white panel to be. And because I'm kind of watching where I'm layering my ink, that's why I wanted to trim it first. A little bit more green here, a little bit darker. I'm happy with the spots that I have, but I'm just adding a little bit more ink on top. And the Fusion inks really blend beautifully. And you can even layer, 1, 2, 3, 4 layers, whatever you want. Okay, that's kind of popping for me. Looks kind of neon on the camera. It's like, woohoo! Electric Lime. Actually, it was one of our neon colors from our Be Amazing collection, so that's pretty fun. I want a couple really nice shots of pink. This is Watermelon Fusion. And isn't it pretty how the sponge just really gives you that soft, glowy effect? You could use a dauber. I'm going to be using daubers for a card later. But a dauber will tend to give you, a much more of a harder edge. So that's why I choose to use the sponge. A little bit more watermelon here. Maybe one more patch. So see, this is why I trimmed it first, so I could really kind of be deliberate about where I'm adding my color. So again, kind of a good idea to add that step in there. Let's see, yellow's another light color. Let's do our haystack yellow next. This is kind of a dreamy night sky, I guess. It's kind of like, I don't know, Northern Lights. Does anyone have Northern Lights where they live? Roy, did you ever see Northern Lights when you lived back east?
Actually, we did. Every now and then they make their way down.
Cool. I have never seen the Northern Lights. My husband's family's from Minnesota, and the times that we've been there, we've never happened to be there when they were showing. Now I have daughter-in-law and a son-in-law that have originally lived in Canada, so I'm feeling like it's going to happen. I'm going to get to Canada one of these days. I'm going to see the Northern Lights.
You need a pretty dark sky to see it, too.
It used to be really dark sky, like no moon hardly or whatever.
Yeah, like when you can see the Milky Way kind of thing.
Cool. All right, so now I've got my 2 blues left, and that's Catalina Splash, and I'll bring in some Turbo Teal in a minute. Catalina Splash is really what I want to come in and just kind of go almost like between all my colors now. Kind of get out to the edges of my cardstock, because this really is the main part of the background. But you see why we did the lighter colors first, so now I kind of know where to bring in my Catalina Splash. And I'm totally fine with it mixing with a few of the other colors. You'll see as I start adding the color and really blending it, that you're going to get those fun, purples where the watermelon and the Catalina meet. And the lighter greens where it touches the electric lime. Really pretty cool. I had fun creating this technique. Again, I kind of want these spots of color to just be kind of glowing amongst the blue. So just keep playing. Be patient. Take your time. Bring in your cat splash. And we can come in with those original colors too and blend them some more, of course. And this is just our regular whipped cream cardstock. It's not the splash sheet or anything. So it has a really beautiful smooth surface. I really do kind of like to come in and make sure that there's blue kind of around all the edges, even if I kind of come in with, you know, the sponge and kind of touch the edge of my paper. It really gives that nice definition. Okay, I'm going to pause with my Catalina, and I'm going to do my last color, Turbo, and I may have to come back and do a little bit more Catalina. We will see. Here's my Turbo Teal. Because this is another blue, I can pretty much come in right where I've already done Catalina, and then it's just going to give me a slightly different shade of blue. Kind of blend it in. Kind of liking it so far. How you guys doing with yours? Again, we'll pause the video when I get finished with mine and give you a chance to catch up. I know sometimes when I'm watching videos, I like to kind of watch the person do it and then come back and do my own. Kind of get the idea of where we're headed, right? You can see that the Turbo is not changing the color a whole ton. You are seeing a little, you know, a few glimpses of the more tealy color in here, which is totally fun. But it's kind of more about blending. You can see that those spots of really bright color that I had now are really starting to kind of blend in and just become part of the overall background. Love it. Okay, so I do think I'm kind of come in with the Catalina splash just a little bit more because I want parts of it maybe a little bit darker. You can see here where I've got some really kind of lighter shades in here. I kind of really want it to be rich and dark and yummy. So come in with my cat. We fondly call it cat splash. Sometimes we can't be bothered to say Catalina all the way. Kind of funny. I hope you're all excited about the live show on June 22nd. If you're watching this video before the show, I am super excited. We have so many amazing guest designers doing videos. And if you've already watched that show, well then, you're just ahead of me in the space-time continuum. So again, making sure those edges are really nice. Ooh, see how much difference it makes with just that little bit extra Catalina splash? I'm like, ooh, ah. Okay, Roy, I need a little ooh, ah.
I'm still blown away that you said space-time continuum.
Yes! It's awesome. Okay, so I'm happy with the blue now. I want to make sure all my other bright colors are kind of popping there, and I feel like they are. If there's anything else, blend this yellow just a tiny bit. I feel pretty happy with that. I feel like it's kind of got that spooky, really cool glow thing going on. So we are going to actually pause this. Maybe I'll just bring the ink colors back in before I pause it so you guys can see, be reminded of the 5 colors I used. I'm going to go ahead and get a nice screenshot. Good job, Roy. We'll go ahead and pause this, let you guys catch up. I'm going to tidy up just a bit, and then we will be right back. Okay, so let's take a look at where we left off. You've got your amazing background done. This is the rest of that card kit where we've trimmed the paper down. It's all ready to go. Because we are going to do some embossing on that, if you see on the postcard, let me just grab it. We are going to do white embossing on top of this inked pad, but guess what, guys? We want to make sure this is really nice and dry before we do that embossing. Otherwise, the embossing powder, if you can picture it, is going to kind of stick all over, and that's not cool, right? So we're going to go ahead and let this dry, and we're going to start on card number 3. So I'm just going to set this up here. Card number 3 has a small little messy background, but not near as much as the first one. So this card is the Dream, Seek, Achieve. It's got the lovely swans, which are, of course, floating in space. So let me grab in my box here the kit that matches. Now this kit has got, my stamp thing, a whole lot of white going on. So the kit doesn't look super exciting right now, but we are going to really make it come to life. It's going to be gorgeous. So I'm going to put the postcard up. Okay. Start taking this guy apart. Save my bag. Okay, so this is going to eventually be a shaker card. So what you've got in here is you've got the Clearview sheet. We're going to set that aside. And actually we're going to set aside the panel that's already die cut too. We're going to layer the Clearview sheet with that. So this we won't need for just a couple minutes. Set that guy over there. You've got your card base, which I actually may go ahead and grab my crease tool, go right here. I may go ahead and just fold this so I can kind of have it prepped and ready to go. So this is, I guess what we call a tent fold card. So the fold is at the top of the card. And again, flipping my cardstock inside out gives me the really nice crease. So there's your card base. When it gets finished, it'll open like that. Set that guy aside. And we can set the string aside. We don't need that. Really the pieces we're going to need, we've got two pieces right here that are both exactly the same size. So we're going to use one for the background, and then one is going to be kind of a stabilizing cardstock if you need it. So we gave you an extra sheet. So you really only need one of these, but I'm going to keep this one handy to be kind of my stabilizer. So this is the first one I'm going to need. This square that's this size, I'm going to go ahead and actually, you know what? Now I'm thinking back. I'm going to use this one for my background, and I'm going to save this for stamping my swans, just so I have a little bit more room. But again, you have two of them. It's not really going to matter which one you use. But this I'm going to use for my background because I just realized that it is actually the perfect size to fit behind my window. Does that make sense? It's plenty big enough to fit behind my window. So let's use the square for doing the fun background. Like I said, you have an extra one, so it doesn't really matter. But you've also got these two die cut pieces, and these are from one of the Fun Stamper's Journey dies. And these actually are cut from that same splash paper we used in the very first card. So you can feel that they're heavier weight paper, and that is our watercolor paper. So you're going to need your square and your two watercolor pieces, and we're going to be ready to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab out that clear plastic sheet, which is buried here. Hold please. And I'm going to use this kind of as my little water palette. So this is a sheet we peeled off of our stamp set earlier, remember? Of course, you're not going to be able to see it very good, but I'm going to use this as my non-porous surface, I guess we call it. I'm going to use two items on this surface. I'm going to use Outrageous Pink Splash. And again, this is one that's got some fun little metallic in it, so I'm going to make sure I shake it up real good. I'm also going to use Lovely Blue Liquid Color. Some of you may have bought the new Lovely Blue Pearl Splash that came with our Wet n Wild kit. It was kind of an add-on kit. So if you did, you can use that instead of this blue, but I'm going to assume that not all of you did buy that, and I'm going to use Lovely Blue Liquid Color. But again, if you have the splash, you totally could use it. So I'm going to go ahead and instead of spritzing this on here, I'm going to use it a little bit differently. I'm going to go ahead and open the lid carefully. And I'm going to use the little wand to just add some of the Outrageous Pink onto my non-porous surface. So I don't need a ton of color. I just need enough to give it a kind of pink glow. Now this looks really, really, really terribly bright right now. But once you add the water and dilute it, it's absolutely amazing how it softens the color and turns it to a really nice dreamy pink. So I'm going to add a little bit of water to this, but then I'm going to actually add my Lovely Blue directly to this sheet along with it. You could add the water now or add it later, but I kind of like to add a little bit of water to get it started. And I'm going to add some Lovely Blue around the edges and add a little bit more water. I'm adding the water to the sheet for a specific reason, because when I come in with this paper, which is not watercolor paper, this is going to really kind of be a one and done, kind of a dip and go, because this cannot handle as much water as our splash sheets do, like the first card we worked on. So again, I'm adding the water here instead of adding it to my card base. Now when these colors mix, you're going to get a little purple action, which is totally fine. So once you have a nice puddle of liquid here, I'm going to go ahead and dip my whipped cream in here. Check out how it looks. Maybe I want to, if I've got some little white spots, I want to pick up a little bit more color. Ooh, just got some on my postcard. A little bit more in that spot. So see, I want to make sure that most of it's colored. It's going to look quite dark. I can add a little bit of water to this too. It's going to look a little darker. When it dries much lighter than this. So if you look at it and go, oh, eek, it looks too dark, too much pigment. It really is not. When it dries, it's going to be a really gorgeous, just really soft background. So I'm happy with that. Move my splash sheet. I'll probably rinse that off. Put it behind me real quick. Okay. Well, actually, I need the splash sheet. What am I saying? Bring it back, Kim. Okay. Bringing it back. Now what I want to do is I want to dip these two leaves in the same type of idea, but I want them to be more of the pink. So I might even add just a tiny bit more pink up in this corner. They could have some blue on them. It's not really that big a deal. But when I did create the original card, I kind of wanted these watercolor leaves to be, and these I can spritz because, again, they're the splash sheet. I kind of wanted them to be a soft, pretty pink. So that looks nice. Hopefully we're catching that on the video all right. So again, kind of dipping those in the more pinky pink. Now you notice on this die that we didn't poke all the leaves out of the, the little spines out of the middle of the leaf. I kind of liked it whole. You could take your bloom tool and pop out those inner parts of the die, but I kind of liked how it had that extra texture on there. So very cool. Let's bring this back in then. You've got one branch, one leaf, and one dreamy sky background. While this is still wet, I'm going to do one more layer of product on it, and that is our sparkle silk. So our sparkle silk, you can see, looks totally clear until you get all that yummy stuff in the bottom mixed in. And that's all the gorgeous sparkly stuff. So again, you can kind of even hear, I don't know if you guys can hear, I'll bring it closer to the microphone. It does have a little tiny metal ball in there, and that's what helps you stir up the liquid. So I'm going to take sparkle silk and just kind of come in here and do some really pretty additions to my background and my leaves. Because it's still wet, this will kind of spread just a little bit, not a whole ton. I'm not going to spritz it on top. You could do that. You could add, take your mister and spritz it and make that even spread more. But I just kind of want that really fun, kind of glowy. This is not dark night. Maybe this is like twilight or dawn or something where we're getting the mixing of the colors. So isn't that pretty with the sparkle silk? Love it. We laugh that we should buy sparkle silk by the gallon because we just love using it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and again just pause the video super briefly. We can let that dry for a minute. Again, I'm going to kind of tidy up and get ready for the next step of this card, which is the stamping. But in the meantime, if you're not caught up, you can pause the video right now or just continue on with me, and I'll be right back. Okay, so hopefully your background is drying. It's on its way. You've got your sparkle silk on. You're all ready to go. So let's start on the next step of this card. And again, this is the Dream, Seek, and Achieve card. So we've got our pretty little swans there, and that's what we're going to work on next. So you want to grab your stamp set. And again, we have 2 panels of this cardstock left. So I'm going to set one aside, and I'll use one for my stamping. So we've got the swans here. We've actually got 2 swans, one going kind of floating in each direction. Kind of love the idea of them floating through the sky. And then might as well grab our sentiment out too while we're at it, and that is the Dream, Seek, and Achieve sentiment. Pop it out. That one's got red rubber holding it. It's right in the middle of my set here. So those are the 3 stamps we'll need next. Like I said, I'm going to do my 2 little swans there just in good old black licorice. Do one at a time here. We are going to go ahead and use the dies to cut them out, so just make sure they're spaced enough apart when you stamp them that you can die cut each one. There's plenty of room on this sheet. I'm sure we could have used the smaller square too that we did for our background, but it's all good. You'll have an extra scrap of whipped cream, and who couldn't use that, right? Put my little swans over here. You know what, I'm going to go ahead and stamp my background, my sentiment while I've got it out right here before I do my die cutting. So again, kind of using the grid on your block to kind of line up. This sentiment is what I fondly call, a little wonky, so there's really no way that it's going to get 100% straight. So just kind of place it where you're like, okay, that seems like about right to me. Whether you want the achieve down or up or whatever. So what you're going to want to do is bring in your sheet that has the die cutting. It has a die cut circle and also has this really cute pierced circle. I love that. That's going to become the window. So you want your sentiment, I don't have it inked yet, so you want your sentiment, approximately down in the bottom right corner of this panel. Oops, I'll move it up a little bit. Somewhere right around there. You're going to put one swan on either side here. So you want it, fairly low. Again, I'm inking my stamp. Instead of mashing my stamp into the ink pad, I'm using the ink pad to ink it up this way so I don't get any overage of ink there. And again, kind of using my block to get my lines. Excuse my head if I get it in here. And the really biggest trick to rubber stamps is just going straight down and straight up and not trying to rock your stamp too much or, get any smudges that way. So perfect. Okay, set that back aside. I'm going to bring in my dies and my die cutting machine. So quick and easy. Instead of worrying about the fussy cutting. Dump them all out here. Let's see. Swan number 1. Swan number 2. Our dies are pretty much compatible with most die cutting machines. A lot of you might have the Spellbinders machine, which of course is virtually identical to the Fun Stampers Journey machine. Just a little bit different color. Okay, I'm going to grab some repositionable tape real quick. Alrighty, so of course I have washi tape handy all the time, so that's what I'm going to use. Let's get a little swan number 1 here. Kind of have to fiddle, make sure it's lined up just how you want it. Tape him right over his head. Or is it a her? Now we're going to have the discussion about whether these swans are males or females. Now I kind of think the males are prettier, right? Is this true, Roy?
Swans, I am not a geek about swans.
Not a geek about swans. Well, these are pretty no matter if they're male or female, so we'll just leave it at that, right? All right. I cut my two little swanny swans. Get my machine out of the way here. All right. So here's swan number 1, swan number 2. So cute. Love that we have the matching dies. It makes my life so easy. Okay, so these we're going to color a little bit differently. You can use any kind of coloring that you have. Again, whether you have colored pencils or markers or whatever. I have the watercolor pencils from the Journey collection. These are our Color Splash pencils. And they're so fun to use. I wanted to show them in case we have any new viewers who've never seen these guys before. They are super fun. And what you want to use with these is one of our water pens, one of our blending brushes. And this does just have water in the barrel. You just take the top off, unscrew it. Right here, fill it with water, which of course I already did. I tend to like to use the bigger brushes. These come in 3 sizes. They come in small, medium, and large. But I don't know, I kind of tend to like to use the bigger ones. That's just me and my personality, I guess. So I'm going to use this little block as kind of a little mini palette. Again, you could use one of those Clearview sheets or whatever you would like. This does have 2 rows of pencils in it, so a lot of times I just like to open it up like this so I can see all my pencils. And my swans, I'm not going to add a ton of color to them. I just want them to be, just have a little bit of a highlight. So I'm going to take my lighter gray. And again, I kind of want the idea that they're still white swans, but instead of being just so flat, I want to add a little bit of dimension. So you can see that I'm just pulling color from the tip of this watercolor pencil, and it ends up just going on my palette. And this is just a super perfect way to give you just that little bit of watercolor that you need. A lot of times you don't need a whole bunch. If you're using a traditional set, you would probably have to wet the entire block of color, but this way it's really simple and easy. So again, just kind of adding a little bit of color to that swan. I'll probably come back with one more darker shade of gray to highlight a little bit, but this first pass I'm just pretty much coloring it in. Again, if you want to have, a different color swan, if you want to add a little pink or green or blue, of course you can do that too. Okay, so now I'm going to grab that, by the way, was pencil 47. Now I'm going to grab my next darker gray, which would be 46. Pull a little color off that. I'm not adding tons of water to it, but just enough to kind of let the watercolor move. So now I'm just going to kind of come and just do a little bit of highlight, like sort of along the pretty neck. Just darken it up a little bit, maybe on the outside edge of the wing. So see how I'm just kind of adding. You can kind of feather it in if you want. This is a little shadow under here, so I'm going to add a little bit more. A little shadow under that wing. Same thing to this one. Just kind of makes that neck look very regal and beautiful. Swans are beautiful. They're quite trendy now in crafting too. You see swans popping up here and there. You've probably even seen them on clothing. I know my daughter has a darling little shirt from Target that has swans. So they're kind of the trendy little creature right now. Pretty. I do want to have a little color to her little beak, his or her. So I'm going to grab kind of a golden yellow. This is number 14. And again, I don't need much. I can actually just pull it straight from the pencil and then just go into the little beak area. Again, you don't need much, just a little tiny bit. Okay, awesome. Now, one thing I do want to add to these guys, and it doesn't really matter if it's wet or dry, I can do it right now, or I could let them dry a little bit. I'm going to bring back my sparkle silk. So that's the product we used a little bit ago for our background. And this time I'm going to use the actual brush that's as part of the applicator of the silk. And I'm going to brush it right onto my little swans, just a little bit, just to give them a little fun highlight. So I'm going to use the brush that is, again, like I said, part of the applicator. It's almost like a little mini paintbrush. Super fun. I'm just going to come along and do kind of mostly the wing. See how that adds that gorgeous sparkle? That's just stunning. I actually think that's all I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to do the wing. You could do more if you want. I'm kind of happy with just the wing having that nice extra little glimmer to it. Do you love it? I think you can see that the camera picks it up quite well. See if I can pick it up. Let me kind of tilt it a little bit. There we go. Isn't that just fun? Okay, so now my wings are done. My swans are looking gorgeous and elegant and dreamy. And I can kind of set those aside and let them dry. Let me move my pencils out of the way real quick. I'm going to bring back my square that I had earlier and my fun little leaves. And I'm feeling like my square is almost all the way dry. I can still feel it's a tiny bit damp on the inside, so I'm going to let that dry a few more minutes. But we can start assembling the shaker part of our card. That's going to take a few minutes to kind of monkey with. So we can do that while we're letting that dry. And when the panel gets to this point, I'm not too shy about coming back with the heat gun and just finishing it off to let it dry, because the color's mostly set. The heat gun is not going to affect that. Isn't it kind of pretty how it's blended? And remember I told you how it dries very much lighter than it originally looked. So you can see that's happening already. So let's go ahead and work on a little bit of our shaker card here. So what we've got is our panel right here with the die cut and then the clear view sheet that came in your kit. And I'm just going to go ahead and use, I think I'll use regular adhesive. You could use wet glue here. Actually, I'm wondering if I should do that. I'm thinking I'm going to use wet glue. I think it's going to hold that clear view sheet. You know how plastic tends to pop off a little bit? I actually think it's going to hold better with my wet glue. So I'm just going to kind of spread that around there. Where's my clear view sheet? It's clear, I can't see it. And you just want to kind of place it down, give it a little rub, kind of let that glue soak into the paper. Of course, it won't soak into the acetate, but it should hold it pretty good. You could probably take one of your blocks, maybe kind of put it on, weight it down a little bit. Have a bigger block. Let me grab a bigger block. Always have your blocks handy, right? Another use for a clear view block. Okay, I'm going to set this aside and let it dry. And then, actually, I'm going to use my heat gun just a minute on this. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and I'll just lay this here. I don't want to have to torture you guys with the sound of the heat gun. So I'm going to pause it here. I'm going to heat it off air, and then I'm just going to finish drying this so we can finish up this card. So I will be right back. Okay, so I think mine feels pretty dry now. I hit it with the heat gun a little bit. So now I'm bringing in my card base. So this is the one that we have folded in half, right? And then I'm just going to kind of position it here and adhere this guy down. Now that it's dry. Like plenty of adhesive. This is still a tiny bit warped, probably because I did use the heat gun. Normally if you let it dry naturally, it would dry pretty flat. But plenty of adhesive will take care of that. Okay, so there's our super cool sky background. Now this is going to be a little tedious, and I probably will end up having Roy speed up the video at this part, but I'm grabbing my Starry Night sequins, and you guys, you're going to say I'm really weird. But what I did was I went ahead and dumped, a little collection out. But I went through and I picked out, and it doesn't take that long, but I went ahead and picked out the silver and gold pieces, and I put the blue ones back. Am I crazy or what? Because this card is really all about the silver and gold. And so I wanted the stars and all the little silver pieces, the gold pieces, and some of the fun little beads that are in there too. So you've even got these little guys right here that are like the little beads. So I'm going to go ahead and sort it a little bit more, and I'll probably end up fast forwarding it on the film. Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and put this pile kind of spread out here so you can take one more look at it. And if you need to pause the video right now and finish your sorting, you can do that, and I will be right back. Alright, so we've just got a couple steps left. It's really all about assembly at this point. We've got our sequins all sorted out here. So I'm going to kind of go ahead and scoop them. Might not show on the camera. I'm going to scoop them onto my card background here. So now they're all in my little starry sky. Aren't they gorgeous? Are you guys so happy you picked out the silver and gold? Of course you are. So I'm just going to kind of leave them in a little pile all in the middle. Set this aside for just a minute. Now when we take our window sheet, I'm going to add my foam adhesive to the side where I glued it. So my glue's pretty much dry now. So you can see kind of where we're going with it. We're going to add the foam adhesive, and then we're going to capture them behind the window. So that's why I put them in a little pile all in the middle. So kind of have those there. And now it's fun to add all of our adhesive. In fact, I kind of love this trick of speeding up the video. So I'm not going to talk while I add my adhesive all the way around this circle and then also at the edges of my card. And we'll probably just make that go really speedy. So now we've got all of our sticky tabs on, and now you know why I have all these little papers always stuck to my shirt all the time. So we've got everything, the adhesive on, we've got the little tabs removed. And again, our sequins are in a nice little pile right in the middle there. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on. The trickiest thing now is just really getting it on your card front in the proper manner. So you just have to be a little bit patient, a little bit careful, and center it before you let the little sticky tabs touch. So I might get my head in here a tiny bit. I'll try not to. So I'm just looking to see that that's even all the way around the edges. It looks pretty good. And then you're going to just completely seal, you know, give a little bit of pressure around here to seal those gorgeous little sequins in. And then you have your shaker card. So you have everything captured inside, and yes, check it out now. You can move those little guys all around, tap it, you know, do whatever. And they're going to just kind of float in your starry sky back there. Love it. So fun, so cute. Okay, so now we have our fun little swans that we're going to layer up. Remember that piece of white twine we had around? We've got it right here. You're going to want to grab that. That was in your kit. Your little pink leaf and your other little pink leaf that you have. And now we're going to kind of use some foam tape and kind of layer these all up. And we are almost done with this card. So fun. Let's see, where did my foam squares go now? Did I use them all? I hope not. Nope, I still have plenty. Okay, so we'll start with the twine, and then I'm just going to kind of make a little nest. This actually is a little bit more behind the swan that's on the right, so it's slightly off center. There probably is more twine than you'll actually need, so you may have to trim a little bit off, but again, that's fine too. So kind of put it here. It just kind of adds a little dreamy texture. I kind of put the dots or the foam squares strategically there because I know that's about where it's going to be covered up by my swan. So that's why it's off center there. Go ahead and put a dot. Put a couple foam dots behind this guy. Foam squares, I should say. Now I can kind of put my two swans together and I can kind of see where I want them. I want the head to be a little bit over the, you know, edge of the circle so they can seem like they're floating in the sky there. And they're almost like two little lovebirds. Put one here. Peel off this guy. Put this one here. Now my little leaves kind of just get tucked in. I guess I can kind of peel up one of these foam squares. Kind of tuck one leaf in behind this guy. And then I'll probably put a little bit of my craft glue behind this leaf. Just on the edge. Woo. See that? Just a little dot there. Then this can kind of get tucked, maybe even behind the twine. Behind that little swan. So it just gives them a little extra dimension right there. And so I might have to trim this piece of twine maybe a little bit. Just a smidge shorter. And there is your first completed card. So we have all these cards in progress, but it is super fun to have one completely done now. I love it. I'm really happy with it. I feel like my swans are just having a good time there floating in space. I hope that you love it as much as I do. We will go ahead and pause the video here so you can get your swans all adhered and your twine and everything perfect, and set that card aside. Give yourself a pat on the back. You've got one card finished. You've got two cards in progress and one more to go. So if you need to take a little break right now or whatever you want to do, please take this time to do that too. And we will be right back. All right, so congratulations on getting your first card done. Let's take a peek at the first background that we did for that very first card. Check up on it, see how it's doing, and then I'm actually gonna move into card number 4 because I think these are still not 100% dry. Let's check it out. Oh, pretty close. Mine is pretty close to being dry. So here's the one I did on screen here. Isn't it pretty? I love it. And then let me show you version number 2 just for funsies. So this is the second one I did where I added more blue too. And that's coming out really pretty too. So I've got one, this looks like it has a little bit more black. That's pretty cool. And then this has a lot of the blue and the silver and the little pops of green. I love them both. I actually am gonna get rid of those guys because mine are dry enough to touch. They may not be dry 100% all the way through. So we are gonna let them sit for a little bit longer, but I hope you're happy with your backgrounds. I love them. Okay, so card number 4 is this gorgeous guy, and we are gonna have fun with the background. This one dries much quicker, but it is still kind of a fun inky technique, so I wanna get us started on that. This one is the Dream Whale card, as you can see on your little postcard there. And I've got the kit right here. I'll take it apart. Little bits and pieces here. Got a vellum circle, don't lose that. It's kind of hard to see sometimes. We've got our card base and our purple mat. And then again, we have 2 pieces of whipped cream cardstock, which are pretty much exactly the same. Again, we really just give you an extra, so in case you are not happy with the first one that turns out, you kind of have that option, that backup piece. So I'm going to take one of them, and again, they're exactly the same size, kind of put it here. So I'm going to grab my clear block. You can use, again, one of your plastics, you know, as a workable surface or whatnot. But this time I'm going to grab Catalina Splash liquid color, and I'm just going to put about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 drops on here. Okay, 6 maybe, whatever. Something like that. You don't need a super ton amount. Then what I've got here is this is kind of like, I don't know if it's an official baby wipe technique or what that really even is, but I do have a baby wipe, and you can use a moistened paper towel or whatever you have. And I'm going to kind of scrunch it up just a little bit here so I kind of have a little bit of a surface. And I'm going to pick up that Catalina Splash, and it pretty much picks up just about everything off of that sheet. So now I've got it all right here. And for my background, I just want a really nice oval out of this Catalina Splash. So I'm going to kind of start in the middle and work fairly quickly and just lay down my Catalina Splash and make a really fun oval. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can have a little extra hanging around on the edge, whatever. We're actually going to do some watercolor techniques on top of this. So don't stress too much about your oval. Just give yourself a nice sky, and that is what your whale is going to float against. Set this aside. Now, liquid color is really pigmented. You can see that it kind of will get all over your fingers, but hey, that's part of the fun. It's part of the inky fun, right? Okay, so that will dry fairly quickly because it's not super saturated. But in the meantime, we can go ahead and grab our panel. This is the smaller square panel, and this one we're going to use to stamp our whale. So we need our stamp set back. It's right here. I chose the big whale, the really fun one. I thought it was really going to be really fun to color. So let me pop him out. So fun to have a brand new stamp set. It's like all the possibilities, right? I'm actually going to make sure that this block is all the way wiped off. Use this one for stamping. It's probably a little bit big, but one trick actually is to use your block to be as close as possible to the size of your stamp, but this one will work just fine. Ink him up really well. We're going to go ahead and die cut him after, so try to get him somewhat centered on this panel. I think I'm going to color him before I die cut him, because then I can use the extra paper to, you know, be my leverage for coloring. So I won't die cut him quite yet. But there he is. He's my gorgeous, gorgeous whale. Now I'm going to have to ask Roy, like, okay, Roy, what kind of whale is this?
That appears to be a humpback whale.
A humpback whale, yes. I like it, I like it. So I'm going to go ahead and use my watercolors, but again, you can use anything you want to color, you know, once you've got your image stamped, any of your coloring mediums that you want to use, but I am using my watercolors. Put my brush back in. Now this guy was fun to color, and I probably won't go ahead and talk too much while I'm coloring him. I will try to show you the color pencils that I'm using ahead of time. And then I think that at some point we'll probably end up speeding this guy up a little bit too, just to be a little bit more speedy in our video. But again, you'll be able to watch me do it, and maybe you even want to do that. Maybe you want to watch me do the coloring and then go ahead and pause it and then do your own coloring. That seems like it could work. So here are the pencils that I'm mainly going to use. If I do grab another one, I'll try to show it on the video, but I've got here 25, 27, 34, 30, and 29. So basically I'm going to be using these 5 pencils to do my watercoloring. So I'm just going to kind of play and have fun coloring, and maybe we'll have a fun little music to go on while I do that, and you guys can watch and color your whale as you go along. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. I love that we've got kind of the shading on the whale with the blues and the purples. This part, the little belly part of my humpback here, I kept really light because we're going to come back with some journey glaze and add some pretty sparkly to that. So I think it's pretty good. I mean, you can play really for quite a while. Maybe add a tiny bit more purple here, just along the edge around his eye. But yeah, feeling pretty good about that. So we'll go ahead and let that dry. In fact, it's got a weird gleam right there. That's not a white spot, by the way, people. That's just wet water. We'll go ahead and let this dry, and I will pause the video just for a minute in case you want to replay it, go back and look. But again, I just did use the same 5 pencils. I didn't use any additional ones that I showed you earlier. And I think you're going to be pretty good to go. So we'll go ahead and pause that, and I will be right back. Alrighty then. So we've got our whale all colored. We're ready to die cut him. These really do dry pretty quick. Mine feels pretty dry, but make sure yours is completely dry before we come in with the die cutting machine. Let's just do that real quick, and then we're going to work on this background, which mine feels all dry too. We're going to finish up that background, so let me grab my machine again real quick. The countertop isn't so big here. When I'm working in my regular craft room, I have my machine at the end of my counter, but right. Cutting plate, put this little guy on here. I will use a little bit more of my tape here too to make sure he's centered on there. Lined up. Cute little humpback. You guys gonna give your humpback a name? Huey the humpback. How about that? You like that one, Roy? Huey?
Huey?
Harold?
Sure, sounds adorable.
Sure, sounds adorable. He's like, sure. All right, so just kind of looking ahead, he's going to float on here just beautifully, I do believe, but we have a few more steps to work on this background to just finish it up just perfectly. I think I am going to go ahead and trim it first. This panel's a little bit taller than it needs to be, so go ahead and grab your trimmer. And I'm going to take a little bit off of both edge. Right now this is kind of a standard card front size, so it should be 4 1/4, which it is. And we only want it to be about 3 1/2. Trying to decide how much I want to take off of each side here. Take off a little bit here. Flip it around. And again, let's start with 3 1/2, and then I'm going to grab out that purple mat and see how close we are. Need a smidge more. Oh no, yeah, that's right. So about 3 1/2 inches wide you need, because this is the lavender mat that we're going to use when we're finished with the card. So trim it just a little bit on top and bottom edge. You want to leave the sides the same though, don't trim the sides. Just the top and bottom edge, and then you've kind of got an idea of where we're headed. So the next step is to grab your stencil. So this will be fun. This is your Starbright stencil, and this came in your kit, of course. And let me just get the shiny plastic off here. So this is going to be a fun stencil to use for all kinds of things. I could totally see them for, you know, the holidays, whether it's the patriotic holidays or Christmas or New Year's or anything like that. It's going to be super fun. We are going to do kind of a stenciling type of action here. So I'm actually, weirdly enough, I'm going to use this little plastic that my stencil was in for a little palette to put my paint on. You know, hey, recycle it, get a little more use out of it. So this is our whipped cream acrylic paint. Get the top off. And then I don't need a whole ton of amount, but you know, maybe the size of about 1/4 or so. That paint out there. And what I have here is I have one of our large daubers that just has a new sponge on it. So this is the large size dauber. You can use a small dauber if that's what you have too. Or you could even use one of the fusion sponges to do this paint technique. So it's kind of like whatever you have. It's going to be kind of a stencil technique. I'm going to move my stencil around a little bit until I kind of decide, I want it basically to kind of go across my galaxy like this. So that's leaving plenty of blue at the top and bottom. So I'm kind of at the top half of my stencil right here, so you can kind of see where I'm at there. You don't have to copy me exactly, but somewhere around there would be fun. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my dauber and dip it into my paint. And then I'll use some of this to kind of dab off too, because I want to have, you know, not too much paint on my dauber surface. And then when I come in to add my paint through my stencil, I'm just going to use kind of a gentle up and down motion. Go in through. You could tape your stencil down. That's probably not a bad idea now that I'm sitting here using it, but if you've kind of got your hands holding it, it should be fine too. Get that star up there a little bit. And this is going to really be, just kind of be a soft look. You can kind of do a little bit circular motions too if you've got, it's like I've got a few little lines on mine. Kind of rub it in a little bit. Again, once you've got that initial amount of paint off, pick up a little bit more. I think the pouncing really is the best technique. Experiment a little bit, see what works for you. And it's fine if some of your stars go right into the more white of your cardstock, because then that just kind of means they're fading away a little bit. I like that look too. I wrote in the directions on the postcard to just kind of softly do the edges. So even if some of the stars aren't completely done, it's okay, because then you kind of want, you know, how the stars kind of fade away. So don't worry about getting so much paint in there that every single star pops out. Does that make sense? I kind of want to have a soft effect. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty good. I am going to kind of hold it in place and take a peek in case I want to come back, but ooh, looking pretty good. I kind of love it. Make sure there's no stars. I want to add a little bit more paint to. I might add a little bit more up here. So make sure the star is just a little bit darker. One more peek. Yep, I like it. Okay, so now the best idea now is to take this stencil while the paint is still fairly fresh and go ahead and scrub it off, rinse it off with water. You can use mild soap on that too, clean it up. This guy I'll set aside. I actually am going to save this plastic because I'm going to use it for the very first card project we have. We're going to use white paint on that too. So set that aside and keep it handy. Okay, in fact, I think this is actually a perfect opportunity to go ahead and do that first card that we started working on. This paint's going to have to dry just a little smidge. Those stars will dry. And so let's go ahead and bring our first two card panels in. I say two because I made two, but there's really, you really are probably going to have one that you're happy with. I'm going to take the darker one that I have and work with that. So mine's completely dry now, which yours should be too. So it's looking really good. So I think this is a great opportunity to come back with this puddle of paint since we have it out here already. And I'm going to grab one of our paint brushes. This happens to be our round brush. You could, if you want, also use your blender brush. You are going to want to make sure that this gets rinsed really well after you use it. But I kind of like using this bigger, rounder brush. So I'm going to grab some water out of my mister and spritz it on this sheet right here. All right. Make sure my paintbrush is pretty good and wet. I think that's enough. So then now what I can do is, this is just wet right now. I can grab some of my white paint and kind of mix it into this area where I have some of the water. And then I'm looking for the texture of, I don't know, what will I call it? Kind of a heavy cream. I want to make sure there's enough pigment on here so I get some really good star splatter, because that's what we're going to do now. We're going to splatter it on this card. But not, you know, not too runny, but not too thick either, because I want to be able to flick it. So if you want, you can go ahead and grab a scrap piece of paper, like maybe you have a darker cardstock, and practice with this. That's totally fine too. I'm going to kind of wing it, go for it, because I've done this a couple times already, and I feel like it probably will turn out. Now I'm using my media mister as using a platform to kind of knock this brush against. I could use my finger if I wanted to do that, but really this is going to give me a nice surface to knock, and that's going to create some of this paint to flick onto my surface. So, you guys with me? Okay, let's see what happens here. Just going to knock. See? Did you see it? See it happen? Knock, knock, knock. And at this point, you can kind of look at it and decide, okay, I might switch it around here. I want a few more stars here. Your stars can be super fine. They can be heavier. In fact, I'm going to try to grab a little bit more paint and maybe get a couple like bigger, darker stars. And you may want to go ahead and flick it a little bit harder. It can just, again, practice if you want. Get that look where you have, you know, kind of that really nice spread of stars. What were we talking about earlier, Roy? The Milky Way. Maybe part of your stars looks like the Milky Way.
The nebula.
The nebula, yes. So you can see, I think I'm happy with my amount of stars. You can see that as soon as you add that white paint on top, because it's so gorgeous and so vivid, that automatically the whole background of your sky really just changes dimension. All of a sudden you've got that white popping up, and then all the rest of the background kind of melds and recedes and turns absolutely gorgeous. Okay, guys, I'm super excited about that. I love how it turned out. And that paint is going to take a few minutes to dry too, so we can set that back aside while we finish our whale card here. I'm going to bring this guy back in. And these should be dry. Yeah, they're pretty dry. They're all the way dry. So I'm going to bring my palette back in. This is the same palette that I used for painting my whale. If you cleaned yours off, that's totally fine. I just happen to still have mine going here. But I'm going to bring in some of those same watercolor pencils that I had before. These are the same colors we used earlier. And I'll probably just grab my 3 blues. I don't think I'm going to use purple. Well, yeah, I might use a little bit of purple. So you can use all 5, you could use 4, you can use 3, you know, whatever happens to tickle your fancy. But what I want to do is I want to go ahead and soften some of these edges of this baby wipe technique that we did by just adding some watercolor to it. So the watercolor is actually going to reactivate a little bit of this Catalina Splash liquid color in a way that I think you'll find is really fun and interesting. But again, I've just got water in this brush, and I can come back with that same exact palette I used earlier. I wasn't sure I'm using purple. Let me start with a blue. And this is really going to be a really loose, no technique involved watercolor. I'm just going to kind of come in, and I am squeezing a little bit of water out of my brush when I do this. So it just kind of comes in and gives me this nice edgy, you know, softens the edge of that oval. So again, using some blues, and I can pick up a little bit of the purples too. Just kind of softening those looks. Again, this sort of makes it a mix between a sky and an ocean look, right? That's kind of what I was thinking when I was working on this. This could either be the sky or it could be the stars reflected in the ocean, right? Because that's going to be our whale floating in this gorgeous scene here. Grab a little bit more purple. The purple's a little lighter. I'll kind of come out to the edge with some purple. Hopefully I'm not like going off the video screen with this. Again, I do definitely like to leave some white around the edge, so I get the idea that it's that kind of space thing. So you don't have to go all the way to the edge. You can if you want, but I'll bring in a little bit more blue. I'm just going to kind of come in over my stars. This is my lightest blue. And I'm just going to blend a little bit more. This will dry where it doesn't even hardly show that much, but it'll help blend all my colors in. I even like the idea of flicking a little bit of this blue off the pencil. Kind of see how that gives you a little bit more depth too. So you've got the little flicking of the pencils there. You just kind of look at it, decide if it's like, okay, is it blended enough? Do I love it? You can add more, you can add a little bit less than I did. Again, it's your total personal preference, however you like to have it finished. But I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and freeze that frame for just a minute, kind of let you get caught up, make sure that your background is blended beautifully how you like it, and I will be right back. Okay, so now we have our whale done, we have our background done. This card is almost ready to be finished. We do have to heat emboss the sentiment, so I am going to take advantage of this, and we're going to heat emboss two things right now. So let's take a look at our whale card. So we've got, again, all of our pieces here. I brought in the rest of the kit pieces. What you're going to want to grab now is your little vellum circle that is die cut for you. So bring my vellum circle, and we need to bring in this guy that we've been waiting for a while. Our fun, gorgeous, bright colored starry background. Okay, so this is completely dry now, which is what we want before we do the embossing. Because if you can imagine, if we did white embossing on this right now, added powder, when it was wet, the powder would stick all over, right? So that's what we're going to try to avoid. So let me go ahead and grab my Space Galaxy background. Open this guy up. Now, if you have a larger clear block, you absolutely can use this. But for this technique too, I can almost use this as it is on this backer card to go ahead and add this stamping to my image. So I'm going to add clear ink, and then I'm just going to bring in this and go right above it. So I don't even actually need a clear block. If you do have one, of course, you can use it. But since this is smaller than my actual stamp, I think this will work perfectly to add the ink. So I'm going to do the bigger piece first, and then I'm going to do my vellum circle also at the same time. But again, ink this background up with your clear pigment ink. You want to make sure it's nice and covered so we don't have any spots. And I'm going to give you one tip about placement of our background piece too as we lay it on here. Love this new Starry Night. We used to have a star, kind of a constellation background stamp that has been retired. So I love that we have this one that replaces it. It's a little bit different, but so super fun. Okay, now if you notice that, and I'm going to bring the postcard in just real briefly here. If you notice that we have the moon right up in the corner of that background, so I just want to give you a heads up on that. So when you place your panel down, that you don't, place it so your moon is not even on there. So I'm going to try to make sure that most of my moon is caught onto this panel. Does that make sense? Hopefully. And I'm just pressing this with my fingers. You also could take, I have this card base sitting here, you could take another card base on top, and that gives you an even surface to press down. You just want to make sure that that pigment ink is picked up on that panel all the way. Carefully lift it up. And of course you can't see it because it's clear, so we're going to just set that aside for 1 minute here. And then I'm going to use the same little Dream Achieve, as I say again, Dream Seek Achieve stamp that we used in our swan card. And this is the same sentiment I'm going to use right here in the center of this vellum circle. So again, inking up my sentiment and kind of doing that right in the center. Okay, it's not going to show up until we add the powder, so let's go ahead and do that. Maybe I'll do the little sentiment first, and then I'll heat them both at the same time. This is called like multitasking, I guess you would call it. Okay, so there's that one. You can see that I've got the powder on it. I'm going to heat that in a minute. Then I'll grab my background, kind of plunk it underneath. And again, this time be really generous with your powder. You can go all over your background. Don't worry, you can put it all back in your bottle when you're done. Just kind of move it around, make sure everything's covered. And tapping it off as you go. Tap, tap. Tap, tap. Okay, so wow, now you can see the pattern. Yay! So cute. It's going to be even better when we do the heat embossing. Bring my vellum circle back in here too. Okay, now remember the part when I said about be patient with your heat embossing. When you think it's done, just do a little bit more. And I'll probably go ahead and have Roy speed up this part of the video as I heat emboss it, and then you can see the magic happen. Check it out. Alrighty then. Boy, I wish my heat embossing always went that fast. But yeah, gorgeous. Love how this turned out with the heat embossing on top. That white powder just adds that really gorgeous kind of shine and gleam. And then no matter where you have your blobs of color, I think it just really gives that impression of, whoa, you've got the space glow going on. And then of course the sentiment is perfect for my whale card. We'll go ahead and set this guy aside. We're almost ready to finish this card. We've just got a couple little things left to do to assemble that. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and fold my Catalina cardstock here. Fold it back and forth. Sure it's pretty. And then, like I said, we did trim down our Starry Night already, so it's kind of got the right size right now. So you can go ahead and adhere these. You can either add your purple with your foam tape first, but I think I'm going to add this guy to the background before I do that. Again, I want plenty of adhesive because I want this to lay flat. It's a little bit curled up from adding the watercolor. You could use white liner. That actually would be a really good idea too. That's a great adhesive. So kind of whatever you've got on hand. I want to center this and make sure that equal amount of lavender on the top and the bottom. A little bit more adhesive down here. Make sure those corners are good. Trim that extra piece off. Okay, looking good. Now again, like I said, you're going to add this piece to your card base with foam adhesive. Let me grab my foam squares here. Pop this guy up a little bit. I do like my foam squares, that's for sure. Okay. These little backers off. I should have magically speed up all these pesky details. No, we don't have to do that for everything, but okay, actually, which way was up? Yeah, this way was up. Sure, I got my card how I want it. Really doesn't matter which way is up or down, but pick your direction that you like the best. Okay, super fun. So now we're going to add the whale and the sentiment kind of together. They're going to slightly overlap, and then we're going to put some little detail finishing touches. So you kind of want to move them around, make sure they're placed exactly where you want. Kind of like my whale a little bit lower, just so he can seem like he's kind of floating through the sky there. I have this little triangle piece that I cut out for his tail. That works pretty good. And when you are adding your vellum, I don't have the backs peeled off of this guy yet. You can kind of figure out where your vellum is going, and then you can put one dot of glue behind where the whale is going to cover it. And then we're also going to add a few little glue dots when we add sequins. But this one dot of glue is going to help hold your vellum in place when you add your whale on top. So see, it's going to cover it up. And you think this whale is pretty right now, guys? Oh my gosh, you are going to love it when we add the Journey glaze. You're going to have so much fun with it. Okay, super cute. So we're going to bring back a few of our sequins. And you can adhere these with glue dots. You can adhere them with a little bit of white glue, which is what I'm going to do because, again, I want to kind of hide one more dot of glue underneath that vellum. And this time you can pick whatever sequins tickle your fancy. You can use, I kind of like to look for a few of these iridescent ones because they're really super sparkly. We'll probably do a couple blue ones, maybe a purple. Again, kind of pick whichever ones you want, but I'm going to add one more tiny dot of glue behind here and then cover it up with a sequin. How tricky is that, right? It's like hide everything underneath there. I'll probably have to hold it just for a second and kind of let it set there. Silver is great. Blues, the purples, really any of the sequins are going to be great. Just kind of add to that sparkle effect of your card. I usually try to do an odd number of sequins, so I'm trying to decide if I want 3 or 5. I think I want a few more. Can't resist these sequins. Maybe a couple up by his tail. Ooh, yeah. I'll do another iridescent one. Maybe another blue one. There's so many pretty ones. Oh, this is kind of a clear blue one. How pretty. Let me kind of put that up there. What are we thinking? Looking pretty good? So cute. Again, if the vellum pops up, you could do a tiny little bit of glue along the edge, but I think that's going to lay down fine once it dries. So now comes Journey Glaze. Now this is going to be so fun. We've got Journey Glaze, and I've also got a little pot of our sparkle dust. Actually, this is not my sparkle dust. Sorry, wrong one. That was my white powder. So this is our sparkle dust. I'm going to open it just so you can kind of see inside. It is super fine, gorgeous, gorgeous glitter. Again, we call it sparkle dust. And I'm going to have that handy so when I add the Journey Glaze on top of this whale, that the sparkle dust just turns out gorgeous. Make sure my Journey Glaze is ready for action here. Sometimes the very tip gets a little clogged. I think it's good. I think so. Hold on 1 second. There we go. Make sure the tip is all clear. Okay, now the whole entire whale, I thought it would be fun to Journey Glaze the whole thing. Now we're not necessarily going to add sparkle dust to the entire whale, but we'll kind of use our judgment once we get that far. But the Journey Glaze does two things. One, it's dimensional, so it's going to add that extra bit of dimension to our whale. I'm going to probably not do his eye, just so it kind of stands out a little bit more. You could do it either way, but this is also going to do the second effect, which is going to be be able to adhere the sparkle dust to our whale. Okay, so coming along and adding the Journey Glaze all across my cute little whale here. Journey Glaze dries perfectly clear, and it also does not bubble, which is pretty cool because I've tried a few other adhesives that are similar. It seems like I always get those bubbles. It drives me crazy. But Journey Glaze is super cool because it does not bubble. Come all the way up to his cute little tail. So you can see that it remains dimensional around the edges of the whale. Super cool. Sure I didn't miss any spots. And it kind of is a self-leveler. It kind of will level itself out and just give you almost a look like it's an enamel or something. It's super cool. And you also can add layers of Journey Glaze, which I love that about it too. You could let this dry and add a second coat, and oh my gosh, your whale would just totally pop. Let me spin him around here. So I'm going to kind of tilt him a little bit just so you can sort of see that idea. See that? Isn't that just gorgeous? Where he really has some amazing dimension now. And again, because the Journey Glaze is clear and so shiny, it really makes the color of the watercolor kind of pop up right through there. Okay, so now I talked about sparkle dust, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of sparkle dust. I really just kind of want it along his belly. I don't want to dust the whole thing because then I think it just would be, too much. It would be too sparkly. So I'm going to be really sparing, and I'm just going to take a little pinch, and it's not going to stick to my card base, but I'm just going to kind of go along where his cute little belly is and just kind of add some little sparkle dust. You can have a smidge more in other places, but for the most part you want that sparkly stuff to be right along the bottom. Can you see that pretty good? I don't know if Roy can come in a little bit closer. Oh yeah, look at that. I'm going to give it a quick little tap. I don't want my Journey Glaze to run, but get some of the sparkle off the card. But can you see how the sparkle dust kind of almost sinks into that Journey Glaze and then just gives you that really, really fun finish? Looks like a professionally made, pre-made embellishment or something. I love that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause this card right here so you can finish up your Journey Glazing. Take your time, don't rush it. Make sure that it's just perfect, and you do want to dry it flat because that Journey Glaze can drip if you place the card upright or anything. So let it dry flat, get your sparkle dust on, get it just how you want it, and I will be right back. Alrighty, so let's check out your whale. Mine's still a little bit wet, but take one more peek and we can call this one done, I do believe. So cute. Gorgeous, gorgeous whale. A little bit of sparkly on there. The sequins are good. The background's good. I'm really happy with it. I hope you love your card too. Like I said, that little guy is going to be wet for a while, so I'm going to put him in a safe spot. And I'm going to bring in this card number 3. Actually, yeah, I think this was card number 3 that we started with. Maybe it was 2, I don't know. The Over the Moon card. Let's go ahead and finish this guy up because it's basically done already. We just have a little bit of assembly to do. Fold the card base here. Our cute little beach breeze. Love it. And again, we've got the mat that we already did, and we've got the finished panel. Where'd my adhesive go? Oh, right here. Okay, so go ahead and add your Limeade splash panel to your card front. And then when we come to the embossed piece, we're going to go ahead and pop that guy up. So this time the card's a little bit different. Instead of centering this mat, we're doing it all the way in the upper left-hand corner. So I think just gives a little unique look for our card front there. And then this guy, of course, is going to have some foam squares, popping it up. Love how that embossing turned out. Don't you guys love it? Hopefully you're embossing your little heart out today. Whoops, peel that guy off. Something about white embossing powder. It's just a classic. I think no matter what you do, it's going to turn out gorgeous. More tabs. More tabs to stick to my clothes. One of our viewers, it was pretty funny one time, she posted, I think she posted a picture of her little dog and it had one of the little foam squares stuck to his nose. I was like, oh, that's so cute. Okay, so again, justifying all the way in the upper left-hand corner. Make sure that's centered on there. So cute. So you have your pre-stamped sentiment. How fun is that? All done for you. And this little piece of wax paper is our clever way of giving you a fun little sampler of our washi tape. So then normally, of course, this comes in a whole roll. But this is a fun way for us to give you a little sampling of it. I'm going to kind of check out where I want my sentiment, and I'll put my washi tape right there. I'm going to kind of tear one edge to make it a little more natural. And then you have quite a few different stickers right here, and you can pick whatever one you want to use. There's going to be extra, but I'm going to grab one of these little diagonal stripes. I'm going to go ahead and kind of layer it on top of that washi tape a little bit and trim away the extra. Could save it for another project, put it back on the sheet if you want. All right, in fact, I think I'll do that. Put it back on my sticker sheet. It'll be good for another project. And then we've got our sentiment and a few little sequins, and this guy is going to be done. Once we got the hard part over, this last finishing part is quite easy. 3 squares back here. I do want to add a little bit of silk to this finished card once I add the sentiment on top. Maybe I'll do that before I do the sequins. You don't have to do this next step, but I thought when I got this far, I thought, you know what, add a little bit of dimension with our black licorice silk. Again, you don't have to, but I'm just going to really lightly add a few little splotches of the black licorice. Kind of just ties in the black sticker and the black ink on your sentiment. Just adds a tiny bit more dimension. So again, it's okay if it goes on your sentiment circle a little bit, however you want it. Again, kind of an optional finish, but I think it's kind of fun. So now I'll grab my sequins. And this time I do want to use one of these really big moon sequins. So anyway, I think that's what it looks like, one of the big iridescent squares. And I'm going to kind of, oh, I have 2 in my hand. I'm going to kind of tuck this in right kind of underneath my sentiment there. Oops, I'll spin it so the little hole is tucked in. So isn't that kind of fun? Looks like a little extra moon there, a little extra sparkle. And then I'll grab maybe 2 or 3 other sequins. And again, you can put these however you want. Just adding a little bit of glue. You can use a glue dot if you want. I feel like they're gonna almost act like little dimensional stars kind of added to my project here. Maybe one will go up here. All right, one more. How about here? I love these sequins. I can't stop using them. So fun. Okay, so Starry Night sequins, check. Stickers checked, sentiment checked. I think we're gonna call this one good. Look how fun and sparkly it is. Is that just not the best? Love it so much. So Over the Moon card is done. I'll go ahead and pause the video just real briefly, let you kind of make sure you're all caught up, and then we'll go on to finishing our last card. Okay, how you guys doing? Are you hanging in there? We've got our last card to finish. Awesome, you guys are doing so good. This last card again is pretty much finished. We just have a few little assembly pieces to do, so let's finish up. So you've got your Starry Night background that we added the white paint to. So darn cute, love it so much. But we do want this to be 4 by 5 1/4, and it's a wee bit bigger than that right now. So I'm gonna trim it to 4 by 5 1/4, and you can pick whichever side. I don't know if it really matters. You're going to trim off just a smidge off two edges there. So 4 by 5 1/4. That's going to be the perfect size to put on our card front. Oops, there goes my little media tray. Oh well, we'll pick that up in a minute. So now remember I said that you had this blue piece, and it really is all about just becoming a supporting piece for your splash sheet. And that's because my splash sheet's pretty flat. I'm pretty happy with it, but sometimes yours might be a little bit more warped or something. So you can go ahead and add adhesive to this blue. And if you don't want to add adhesive, if you don't want to add this piece, I don't think I really need it, so I'm going to set it aside. But you could go ahead and, you know, add more adhesive and put it on. But since mine is so flat, I think I'll save that blue piece for something else. How does that sound? Sounds like a plan. All right, I'm going to start with 4 adhesive squares in the corners, but before I put them down, I'm going to add this vellum piece. So again, remember how I said we're going to kind of have the vellum piece tucked around this piece? So we want to do that, of course, before we adhere it to the card. Kind of stop myself there. So we've got our moon and our planet are going to kind of lay over here. I kind of want to just watch my placement, and then I can just gently crease the vellum on one side and the other side. Tuck them both in. I went ahead and used our staplers, our fun little stapler that does little mini silver staples. And I went ahead and stapled it right here. If you don't have the mini stapler or don't want to use it, of course you don't have to. You could put some, you know, glue dots or something in the back. I think I'm actually going to staple both sides. So then that automatically holds the vellum in place really well. Then you don't have to stress about it or worry about it. I'll add a couple more foam squares. Get this guy mounted on our black card base. I love the black card base on this one. I think it makes it so elegant and pretty. More tabs. Alrighty. We just kind of want to center that on your card front. Smooth it down. Love it so much. And I did go ahead and use foam squares to pop up the moon and the little planet. I don't know if there's a right side up or an upside down here, but I'm good with it. And then of course, last but not least, we want to add a couple more little sequins, because why not, right? So kind of tuck in on the side here. So just a few. This one doesn't need too many. We don't want to cover up too much of our pretty background, but maybe I'll add a few just for fun. Do 1, 2, 3, actually maybe just 3. Put a blue one up here. Tuck it in a little bit. Silver guy. One more. Ooh, a little iridescent one. This is cool. Alrighty. Scoop these back in here. Oh my gosh. So so happy. Love it so much. I'm going to take my 2 postcards, tuck them away, but I do want to bring all 4 cards back in because I think you guys should give yourself such a huge round of applause. Absolutely love it. Little swan. Let me grab my whale. This guy's probably not 100% dry, but I'm going to be careful. I'm going to put all 4 of our cards in here. And you guys have just finished your Starry Night card kit. I love it so much. If you want, of course, you can pause this right now and finish up your cards. But in the meantime, I will go ahead and say bravo, bravo to you for finishing your Starry Night cards. I had so much fun crafting with you. And again, do wish I was with each and every one of you as you craft. That would be so much fun. But I hope you enjoyed this Make and Take video. If you did purchase the Splash Zone kit, that Make and Take is recorded on a separate video. So if you're doing that, I will be so happy to craft with you again in the near future. In the meantime, I hope that you enjoy bringing paper to life.